Welcome, everybody. It's another Wine and Comics pairing show. I'm going to quickly run over to Instagram and make sure that we are going live on Instagram as well. We are live on Instagram. We are live everywhere. So let's get this started. We have a very special guest. It's been a long time coming with us here today. We're going to introduce her right after this brief opening. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Wine and Comics Pairing Show. And today we have Jessica Maison with us here in the house. Jessica is here to talk about Mary Shelley's School for Monsters. There we go. And specifically, this is the trade paperback of the first series. And we are here to talk about Mary Shelley's School for Monsters Origins. Issue number 1 and 2. 2 is the latest one that is on Kickstarter right now for less than 48 hours. I believe you have until the wee small hours of the morning Pacific time on Wednesday. So really end of Tuesday, if you're going to be real about it. Maybe if you're on the East Coast, you have a little more, you can wake up, you'll be at work, and you can still get online and back it in the last couple hours. But not if you're like me, I ain't up at 8:30. So do it Tuesday night if you're on the West Coast. But this has been a long time coming because Jessica has actually been I don't know if you call it a guest, but she's been a presenter at the first ever in-person Wine and Comics pairing event that took place here in Los Angeles back in February, but she's never actually been on the show. So I'm really happy that she's finally on the show. And it was this book that we paired with a wine at a local winery here at the Blending Lab. But today we are going to pair it online. It's going to be, so what I paired with Mary Shelley, and this doesn't give anything away because I'm going to pair it with something else today. But in the in-person pairing, I paired it with a Zinfandel Cabernet Sauvignon blend from Paso Robles. She still got it. She took home a bottle. I'm saving
it because it was such a nice gift. I'm going to drink it after this Kickstarter and once my husband finishes his last episode of Young Sheldon. So
there you go. Very beautiful. Beautiful. And I will say, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to show you that I had the physical.
Oh, no, please. Oh, interrupt away. It's conversation. Interrupt away. And I'm a babbling host, so please interrupt. And I will say that Zin Cabernet Sauvignon, I think one of the things that I like to, when I described what it was and why I paired it with Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, is that it's kind of like an alcohol-soaked berry muffin, where you have these like fresh berry flavors, blue, red berries, and this very, very gentle tannins. It's smooth, medium body. It's just a nice, gentle, for lack of a better term, gateway red wine that is not too sweet. It's well structured. It's well balanced. It's a well-made wine. It's delicious. It's a crowd pleaser. But it went really well with both the sweetness and the darkness of Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, which we are going to talk about today. So, Jessica, first off, welcome. Let me take a breath.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be on the show because I love this show. And I actually had a wonderful time at the live event because we had Steven there from Monster and Matador and Christy Shin from Demon Bitch. And it was a rainy night, but it was really fun.
Yes, it was.
Dave was a good host and the Blending Lab was great. And we did drink a little wine, maybe a little more than we thought we were going to drink.
We didn't have, it was a rainy night. Not that many people showed in the ultimate end. It's LA. When it rains in LA, everyone stays home.
Under the rock.
Yeah. So it was kind of an unfortunate timing. No one knew it was going to rain that day. We picked the date weeks in advance. So there was no real dependable weather report at that point in time. But I will say
I had a wonderful time. So
beautiful. And one day we will do it again and we will pick a sunny day and have you come back down and do it. I feel like I owe all three of you another go at that, where it's but with more people actually coming and checking out the comic.
I don't owe me anything. I thought it was really fun, and don't worry about that at all.
Perfect. In my brain, I'm just again, but
well, I always will come hang out with you and drink wine. That is good. Fine, yes.
Right. I mean, they get to, and creators out there, if you're in the LA area and you're watching this, we do have our second one coming up end of April. We are we're still in a weird rainy season in LA. I don't know when it's going to stop. This past weekend was a bunch of rain. It's been weird because LA, we've had more rain so far this year than I've seen in 2 years.
Yes.
in sum total in LA. Yeah, it's crazy. But I will say that Blending Lab down on West Adams in LA, if in the future we're going to try and do this like once every other month or something of that nature, I think is kind of like the pattern we're going to try to do this in. And it is kind of like a little mini convention. You set up, we provide the tables, doesn't cost you anything to be there. You just show up with your stuff. Your main book, whatever it is that you do or want to present, you can bring other books as well. It's like a little mini con, but you'll have a main book that we are pairing with one of the wines at that winery. And it's like a little mini con where people come and they can buy a glass of the wine we paired with your book and your book, buy a flight and all the books from all the creators, take home a bottle, whatever they want. So we're going to be doing that in quite a bit going forward. So yeah, FYI for all the LA comic creators out there, that's something that we want to share that love. And you drink for free. You drink for free.
That's
that is the best part. So you can, you gotta pace yourself because it's half a day that you're going to be there, but it's kind of like a book signing / mini con kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in any event, let's talk a little bit, Jessica, about you, because I actually still don't really know. I don't know your backstory. We've met and we chatted a fair bit, but it was just like congenial conversation. It wasn't an interview, right? So it wasn't any of the official, like, so you as a writer, like, what's your story? Where did you come from? What got you into writing? So I'd like to know a little bit about that. I know Dallas still needs to know a lot about that. So please tell us, when did you start writing? And were you a prose writer first and then, kind of sidled into comics, or was it vice versa?
Well, I mean, I started writing when I was in middle school. So, I mean, but not professionally, obviously,
Right.
but I wrote short stories, and I did a lot of stuff where I would write from animals' point of view, and they were always kind of creepy stories. And then I went to college, and I was like, I wanted to write the Great American. Well, I wanted to write my generation's Neuromancer. I was kind of obsessed with.
Oh, nice.
I just didn't know what that
good
was.
Goal.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's a goal.
It was a goal, and I still haven't done that yet, but I will. Don't worry, someday. But I was working on that in college, and then my friend's like, you should take this. My friend kept asking me to read his screenplays, and I was like, God, I've given him a lot of notes. I feel like I can write a screenplay, and so like I took a class, and I just fell in love with screenwriting. Thought it was great because I always like poetry and prose, and it kind of felt like that to me. And I like the collaborative nature of it. So then I double majored. I started doing film, and I came out so I'm from Michigan. I went to University of Michigan, and then I drove out right after college. Well, after making a bunch of money at waiting tables that summer.
Oh, yeah.
Not a bunch of money, but some money at least. And and I came out to LA to try to be a screenwriter, and I had some luck with it. I worked at CAA, then I worked in TV, worked in development. I got an agent with my writing partner, Kim, and we were like two ladies pitching our original features. We went out with a bunch of specs. Had tons of meetings. We almost sold an original animation at Sony. We got way up in meetings, which was crazy because I'm not myself, but that was before Brave, and they just didn't. At that time, they didn't do female leads that were original unless they were based on books, because the logic of the time was that boys were the ones who drove their families to the theaters, and girls were the ones who drove them to the bookstore.
Right.
And so if a girl hero was not connected to a IP, it was like very hard. So we were getting pretty excited because we were like, oh, we're going to do it. And we didn't. That's okay. The reason, and then so I was like, I had my kids, and I was like, you know what? I went to school to write books. I'm going to go back and start writing books. So I wrote a couple novels, and then a buddy just said, you want to go to a Comic-Con? And I was like, let's go to the first Comic-Con in San Diego, guys. So it was a little, like
the deep end.
Yeah, we went right into the deep end, and it was really cool. And I just got so into Artist Alley and small press and all that stuff.
Was it overwhelming too for that very first time?
It was, but this is also a Northern Michigan girl who moved to Los Angeles.
Oh, that's true. You're par for the course.
Yeah. I like the deep end, so I just and and then and my writing partner and I, our first script that we went out with that got us our agent and everything was called Deep Thirst, and it it was basically, we always pitched it as Thelma and Louise meets Tremors, right? Two women go to Joshua Tree on a vision quest, and they got some stuff to work out, and they come across man-eating plants and have to
Nice.
save everybody and figure out who they are at the same time, right? And so unfortunately, that everyone really liked that, but everyone wanted to make Saw when we were doing that.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
all
Right.
the directors we met with were like, "Oh, we want to make Saw," and we're like, "Well, we're not
So
going to."
comedy pulpy horror was not a thing.
Yeah, it wasn't a thing right at that moment. However, you know, we both were started talking about wanting to make that into a comic. So we started jumping into that. And then I just jumped in kind of crazy and started making a comic with a local artist. And then we're kind of put that on hold. And then this happened. So yeah.
Fantastic. Like I'm just curious about those
we are
those
going to
early
make Deep Thirst into a comic, so that's still happening.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right. That was my question, actually. That was my next question.
Well, it's just harder because we're writing partners, and so we both have two different lives, and we haven't been screenwriting partner. We are like, we have material together but we've been writing separately for a while, and we always are like, we got to get Deep Thirst into a comic. You know, it's just one of those things. So it will happen, but yeah.
Good deal.
It has to
You
happen.
heard it here first, guys. Deep Thirst is coming.
But that's how
I don't know if you heard it here first.
So that's kind of my origin story. And then I just started writing. While I was working I was doing a comic called Pistol, which is a supernatural vigilante who she basically is a victim of sex trafficking, and she goes after those type of criminals. So my first comic was very dark, and it's not done. It's almost done, and we're going to re-release it all. But it's so different than Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, obviously. But I was like, oh, I want to do something dark like Batman. I want to do something Batman-y, but like, you know, with a female lead. And I wanted to tie in like, you know, I wanted to connect like what was happening like at the border and in Mexico into small towns where I'm from, like with the date rape culture and everything like that, and how those things are connected, like how we all like turn a blind eye to those things. And this was, of course, right before Me Too happened. And I was like, no one's talking about this. Why is nobody talking about this? And then like the minute we got the comic, we just go, okay, no, everyone's just talking about it so much. You know what I mean?
Right. They're going to think you're jumping on the trend now, right?
No, I was just right there. I was like, okay. So then it became kind of an existential crisis for our team, because we were like, we were just,
hold on to
it happened. And some of the other stuff, like we have a scene in one of our third ones where like, you know, basically a scene like January 6th happens, and we're like, well, we wrote that and did that before January 6th happened, but we haven't published it. So it's kind of like, no, so it's just, but I mean, I love Pistol. We're still, Mark Mactell and I and Lonnie Watson work on that. And but that's what was the first comic that I did. And then I wanted to kind of blend my love of horror and all the YA middle grade stuff that I love so much. I wanted to make a story in that world, you know, and so that's what happened with Mary Shelley's School for Monsters. You know,
cool. Actually, jumping back real quick, you said that early Comic-Con, that kind of jumping into the deep end.
Yeah.
What did you come away with in terms of actual properties of inspiration, connections from that kind of, you know, that deep dive?
It was the whole thing was really overwhelming. So the first time I think I went with my bud TJ, and we looked everywhere, and I think I just kind of just absorbed it all. But I think what I took away from that first one more than any specific creator or any specific artist was that there was this thriving, cool indie comic scene, and there were so many awesome horror and sci-fi comics. And just
what year was this again, by the way? What era?
I'm gonna say 2000. Oh my God. 10, 11, 12. It's right around there somewhere. And and then the next year the next time I went, I brought my kids and or one of my kids, I think. God, I can't, it's all blending together. I just kept going to Comic-Con.
It's all the before times, right?
Yeah. And
it happened.
And I think the thing though, I remember specifically with my young daughter, one of the, and I set it aside here because I thought we might talk about it, is we met, what I really took away like the second or third visit with my kids was how amazing all these creators were with kids, like, and how they were just always like giving him a little freebie, talking to him, being super nice and talking about art, talking about writing. And my oldest was making little zines and at the time, and she was like 4 or 5. I mean, she was little, just like, and
that's cool.
Yeah. And they were really cool. And I remember meeting Megan Hutchinson. And she does this cool book called Will o' the Wisp. And it was like this, I have it because it's so beautiful, you know, and I bring her up a lot because she was like, she stuck in my mind as just a cool creator. And and then I kind of took away, I think, the independence of it all, which is something I really like. Like I had the agent, I'd gone through the whole thing,
right?
You know, not only were we 2 women pitching and hitting, like we were also, my writing partner is Black, so we were like just hitting like all these walls that we were not aware
all the
of.
walls. Yeah,
we were not, we did not realize that was the problem until people actually started saying it to our face during the animation pitches. Like, we can't do that because it's a girl, or we can't, or like, and they would just say it to you, and you were like, oh yeah. Oh, so then wait, how are people looking at us? And it was like, but now I'm really happy to see things at least blowing up in a different way, which is really nice.
Well, I will say, just to that point, like I worked in a production company for a number of years and was one of the like creative guys low on the ladder, but like one of the ones who took the first meetings with people and brought in scripts and suggested people for projects. And I remember one of the moments that made me think like, God, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this very long, was I suggested someone who I thought was one of the most talented people I knew. And one of the higher up people looked me right in the face and was just like, oh, women can't direct horror.
Yep.
Right.
And that was just like, it was like a blanket statement and just done. And I was just like, what the fuck? And I'm like, this isn't the 1980s, 70s. I mean, like, I don't even know if it made sense then, but I'm like, we're in the 2010s here. Like, what is happening?
No, and the stuff they'll say, and they said would say in development meetings, they would say, because I did development too, I worked in an agency. It was as if it was just part of the business. It was just a fact.
It's all grandfathered in. And it's like no one ever took the time to challenge.
It's like the wisdom of, I've been doing this longer than you. This is the wisdom I'm teaching you by telling you this. And you're like, just, that's it?
Oh, I know. And then when they try to hire a woman at that time would be really funny because they're like, we got to hire a woman on this thriller. There's only one woman the whole time.
Right.
A thriller. And her name is this. And I'm not going to do that, obviously, because I can't remember. It was so long ago. But it was like, and I just would look at my boss, who I thought was a really nice guy, but I was just like, what are you talking about? There's only one woman who can write a thriller in this whole town. Like, But it's gotten better, and thank God it's not the best.
I think they've gotten better. I think they've gotten better at
pretending,
sort of, camouflaging the
lip service, right? Yeah,
for sure.
There's no longer the Blankman stereo, look you right in the face and just say like, you know, women, you, whoever, blanket, you can't do X. But now they're sort of like, well, and then even when they hire, you know, outside of whatever those old walls were, they don't trust that person to do the job right. So then they're very like, you don't really have a lot of leeway. And then it's kind of that too many cooks in the kitchen because they're not letting you do the job. And then whether it succeeds or fails, it's all on you. It doesn't matter that they were hand-holding you all the way and wouldn't let you do the thing. I mean, there's still so many practices that we're still trying to like get
and
past.
That's really true though for everybody in Hollywood. There's always too many people involved. And that was the one thing that always frustrated me in development, as we'd start out with this really great script. And the reason you bought it, the reason everyone loved it, and the reason everyone got excited about it was that it was different. It was cool. And then by the end of the process, it's not different at all anymore. It's every movie you've ever seen. And I was like, how do you guys not see what you're doing? Like, you are trying to hit these commercial buttons, but that's why I like comics, because you can be entirely, still comics has, I'm sure, its own, and since I'm doing indie comics and I'm not working within the structure of like the big, I'm like Marvel or DC or anything. It's just a lot more freedom with like what you're making. And I was really craving not having to go through the process when I started my company and I started going into comics. I mean, I am starting to think about getting agents again, but I had just completely did not want
Right.
Now
Needed a break.
I work with people. I want people's feedback. I just
Of
didn't
course,
want
yeah.
the gatekeeping feedback is what I didn't
Right.
want. I did,
And
Right.
the
I wanted-
shadow hanging over you. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
you
That
know,
makes sense.
and I'm not bitter. I really am not. I just like want
No,
that to be
you don't actually seem bitter at all.
No,
You
So.
don't
I
seem
just
bitter, but it's
want
difficult to
my-
have these conversations and not sound bitter to the average person. That's
yeah,
Right.
the
no,
nature of this.
it's just how it is. It's how the story goes.
There you
That's
go.
how
You're
it's-
just stating facts the way women can't
That's
direct horror. They were just stating facts.
and oh gosh, I know so many women who can direct horror. And then
Oh,
now
yeah.
like
Of course.
luckily the list is much longer, and
Right.
and it's like
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
just funny. The whole thing's funny. I mean, we still have a bunch of garbage
Always.
out there too.
Right.
We've got some
Right.
really good stuff going on too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Yes.
the full spectrum. So how did you what was the on-ramp into the Mary Shelley School for Monsters? Like what was the genesis there?
So I really I've always really dug Mary Shelley, and just kind of like her attitude and like the way that she isn't a perfect person, obviously, but she was her own person, and she didn't
Absolutely.
just follow the constraints of what was expected of her at that time. And of course, she had parents who kind of encouraged that, at least in the beginning, until she started actually living that life.
Right.
Well, her mom never got to know her, obviously, but what I was really fascinated by in general about her story is that she would take her mother's book, because her mom like died, I think 11 days after she was born, and she would take her mother's book to her mother's grave, and she would read it. And it like this in my mind, like trying to connect with her mom, in the spirit of her mom, the essence of her mom. And I found that to be, and as a mother and as someone who's been a daughter, I found that to be very like profound. Like it was both like supernatural and very concrete, right? She's like, I'm going to go sit on the space and I'm going to read this book. And that idea is kind of what started it all. And then I just started thinking, wait, what if she sees something that day in the graveyard, and then she follows it, and all the things are kind of similar to from the Frankenstein book, like there's an occult mad scientist. There's, a mausoleum. Like he's digging up body. I mean, I'm just kind of like playing with some of the stuff.
Absolutely.
And I was like, what if this young Mary Shelley follows this guy and ends up like getting caught up in this occult moment. And she actually, the spell happens and she splits herself into two versions, leaving part of herself there and then going on and forgetting that actually happened. Because she always said, because a lot of things she said about Frankenstein was that, because it was very trendy at the time, that the creative spirit took you over, and you didn't, it wasn't your idea. It was like given to you. And so like, I played with that, like whatever happened in my book, was all like, what is this repressed memory that had her write Frankenstein? But she then leaves the story, and we have Shell, a brand new character who is a completely different entity, but with 12 years of Mary Shelley's memories, right?
Connective tissue. Yeah.
And then like, as the years go by, because she's immortal, she has seen what Mary Shelley has done. I also really love monsters, and I'm specifically wanted to write this series because I feel like a lot of female monsters in mythology, and not just female ones, but I'm focusing on female ones right now, have kind of been overly punished for whatever crime they committed. Like, so like Medusa is a character, but for our first book, La Llorona is a character that they have to rescue. And I just always find that story very fascinating. Like, and I find it both heartbreaking and fascinating when a mother kills her children now, like in modern society. And I always say, well, that mother didn't just kill her children. Like a bunch of things went wrong with her mental health, with society, people, like the way we have society, for her to get to that point, for that to actually happen. So like, and so I wanted to do all that real dark stuff, but do it for middle grade and YA, because that's just, who I want to talk to.
Right.
But no, and so I just started thinking about it, and I honestly wrote the first draft of this series very quickly, because once I put those two ideas together, and it was during lockdown for sure when I started thinking about this one and started outlining it. And then I ended up doing I did some horror anthologies. So I did Nightmare Theater, with Clay
Right.
and David. And I was just looking, we all are in this Facebook group and people post art and, up on it. And someone posted one of Anna's pages from their short. And I said, ooh, she does fire really cool. Like that was, and I'm going to email her and I'm going to see if she wants to do this short for the Cthulhu, It's Hard to Spell anthology, so that we can do a short with these characters, do some character design and see, because she lives in Poland, and see if we can, if there's a there. And there was, we had a great time. And because I wanted to have like I'm a big fan of Monstrous and Pretty Deadly Things. And those are like two female characters that I have a lot of, two separate duos that I have a lot of respect for. And I was like, oh, I'm not saying I'm like them. I'm just saying that was like, I liked that.
I still need to read Monstrous. It's on. I mean, every time I see a new issue come out, I'm like, that one, it looks beautiful.
No, one, I'm not sure I finished Monstrous, but I've read a lot of it.
Okay, that's good. But I mean, I haven't read a single issue. It's just one of those that it's on a short list of like, it's still going. So I don't know when it's going to finish. And a part of me almost just kind of wants it to finish before I jump in. So I know it's like done. It's a thing with me.
That's smart. I have this annoying quality of I'll read like 3 volumes of something and then I'm like, all right, I got what I needed out of that.
That's me. That's me.
I got the vibe. I got the vibe of it. I don't need to know how the story ends. I know what, and as a creator, I think, because that's what you're reading it for, probably is like sort of what are these creators doing? And you're like, oh, that's really cool. Okay, got it. But then you're like, and now I'm done. Now let's see what other creators are doing, kind of a thing.
And they don't, and neither of these two follow all the rules, which I do like as well. And so so it's just, and then so those are things that have inspired me, those books, and so I wanted to do a series that, and also because I do have young children, and they're getting older by the minute. I wanted to write something for them because I wrote Pistol and they all want to look at it. And I'm like, you can't even look at it. Like about rape and stuff. Like, and
you're like, you'll get there. Just give it some years.
And so I really wanted to do something that anyone could pick up and read, but there could still be a little bit of darkness and heaviness in there. As much of as I allow, but and so Anna and I started working together, and she just like it's one of those weird things where I send a character description, and I knew it was going to work right away because I just sent a character description, like a paragraph, and I gave her some visual stuff, and then she just, every time she sends me a character back, I think every single character, I'm like, that's awesome, amazing. Whatever she added was great. There's only one time I think ever where I'm like, oh, can we not do it like that? Can we, like, one time out of all the characters, And so,
there's a lot of characters.
So it's been really good. And it's just interesting to have a strictly email relationship with someone that you're doing something so creatively intimate, but but it's been good. It's been working. So I don't want to break it by flying to Poland and going, hey, what's up?
That's interesting. Right? Yeah. So one day it's got to happen, right?
Yeah.
Right. You mentioned those, your sort of love of monsters. What are some of those sort of favorite monsters? What are you into outside of Mary Shelley's canon?
Well, I mean, I love every creature movie I've ever watched. Like this, I mean, I don't know if I consider King Kong a monster.
Absolutely is. Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure he's behind me.
He's a kaiju. That's a word.
He's a monster.
He is a kaiju. He's a monster. Yeah. I don't think of him, but this is where actually this is very formative, because the first time I watched King Kong, it was the black and white version, which is my other poster in the other room.
Oh yeah.
And I was like 5. My dad always let me watch scary stuff.
Same.
I had this horrible nightmare that night, that King Kong came out of the side of my bed and was like leaning over me, like growl, like his mouth was all open and screaming. But I've been in love with King Kong. I've been in love with Kong since then. And I think what I love about that story and what does it for me every time is that we're the monsters.
Absolutely.
We're the monsters.
Very Frankenstein that way. Yeah,
exactly. And that's why, and all those stories, that is what I love about every monster is like, if it done right, you should not you should feel bad for the monster by
Right.
the end of the
Absolutely.
movie. Yeah.
Right.
And so
It's like the situation they're in to be labeled a monster
Right.
is unfortunate, not entirely, like they're not entirely to blame. A lot of it is our reaction to them.
Right.
Things
Mhm.
like Medusa, where it's like you turn people to stone when you look at them. It's like, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
You know,
No.
right.
But also,
it's like,
she
I
can't
mean,
help it.
right. It's like, it's dangerous. And we have to, like, yes, you
And
don't want her to look at you, but that doesn't, yeah, what do you do with
and
that,
she
right?
probably she has a right to be super pissed off.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Everyone
You know,
wants her
like,
head.
yeah, she's
Right.
cursed for the dumbest reason, and it's like, yeah, and so,
Yes.
definitely Medusa, because I must have watched God, I must have watched that movie 1,000 times with my
Oh,
brother and sister,
me
you know,
too.
and it was like so many times. I love
Clash
every
of the Titans for me was just one of those films that just
Mhm.
changed
I think, yeah, we're all of that
everything.
generation. Yeah,
It,
100%.
everything. It just changed everything for me.
Yeah.
It really did. It's kind of silly, but
Yeah.
not silly. It's just you
Right.
watched it and you're like, what
Yeah.
the heck? What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just this sort of amalgamation of all these like almost disparate elements. It was like you get the whimsy of the flying unicorn, the horse, and you get this
Right.
mechanical sort of automaton, and you get these
Well, I feel
kaiju, and
like
you get this gorgeous. What's his name? What was the guy's name?
Oh, he was gorgeous. What was his name?
Harry Hamlin.
Yeah.
Jeez.
yes,
Yeah.
Hamlin.
Those-
It's kind of like when you read through, no one's gorgeous in these, but like Aesop's Fables or something. And it's like
Yes.
all those mini
Yes.
stories, but then with a very loose connective
Yes.
thread tissue to
Yeah.
tie them all. So you're literally just going through a book
Yeah.
of monsters, a book of legends.
Yeah.
And
It's
yeah,
pure
it
fantasy.
was great. Yeah, yeah.
And it probably even started. My mom, Edith Hamilton, that book. I remember my mom gave me her old Edith Hamilton, and I probably read through all the Greek mythology monsters,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, this is a crazy. Why?
Yeah.
Why do we tell these crazy stories?"
Right.
And that's what
Right.
it really gets to me. Is like, why?
Right.
What
OG
are we
folklore
doing? Why
is
do we make up?
fucked up.
Yeah.
It really was. It really
And you
was.
go, and then I'm like having a lot of fun doing Monster of the Week because I'm getting into
Yes.
all these other cultures, folklore, and
Yeah.
it's just like every time I discover something I've never heard of, it blows my mind because I'm like, how have I been on this planet this long and not
I
read about this
know.
monster? It's because
Yes.
we're
And by the way, good
that
plug,
is
Monster of the Week link in the chat, guys.
Oh, thanks. No, it's just me having, I mean, Monster of the Week's just me having fun, like writing as Necro, the Book of the Dead, or my character, and exploring monsters because there's just so many of them. There's so many creatures. What are we afraid of? What are we?
Right.
We're afraid of everything. We are afraid of everything. Yeah. So.
Well, and you know, one of the things that I've been thinking, not in relation to monsters, but now that I think about it, this is totally in relation to monsters. One thing that's been on my mind recently is, you know, I'm a cat dad, and it's always like rescue cats, and it's always a rescue cat that has, I always look for the one that they're like, it's older, it's not friendly enough, it's like no one's taking this poor thing, right?
Yeah.
It's failed at like multiple foster homes, and I'm like, that one. I'm like, I know I'm enough of a cat whisperer. I'm gonna try that one. And so I'll do it. But I think what I've found with animals, and I think dogs and cats are the same way, and people are this way too, no matter what your past is, and no matter how broken you've become, we all just kind of want to be accepted for who and what we are.
Yeah.
And yes, we have to be like, our behavior can't just be anything. Like, you know, there's certain things with like domestication
There's certain
and
rules.
right, following certain rules. Like, you can't just be like, whatever you do,
I
it's
feel
great, it's fine.
attacked. I feel
Right,
personally
exactly.
Bill
attacked.
says whatever he wants.
I feel personally attacked.
But at the same time, if we don't make it a, like, the way to get around rescue animals that are like, you know, have been traumatized to the point where they don't trust anybody or anything, is let them act out for a little while and up to a point, and you're not like yelling at them, screaming at them, you know, like smacking your hands and being like, you're so bad for not being cuddly the first week I've had you, you know, kind of a thing. And it's when you allow for that and you're still friend, then that's what makes them come out of their shell. And I think people are the same way when there's always surprised that you're okay with your own flaws, you know, and then you're like, oh, okay. And yes, we all have to learn how to get along with each other. Like I said, it's not anything goes, but it's all about accepting who and what the other thing is. To enough of a point that that is what brings us together, and that's what allows us to move forward together. And I think like the monster, it's a great allegory for all of that, like taking actual monsters and their legends, where it's like these were things that were outside that beaten path, outside of what people were used to dealing with. And instead of dealing with them or finding a way to deal with them, they were just like kill them, chase them out, pitchforks and fire and things like that. And that's when we become enemies. That's when it all goes wrong. So yeah,
in back to this conversation of early exposure to monsters, the two characters that really impressed upon me the idea of the sort of walking everyday monster was Fritz Lang's M. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my God, just that movie.
It's a great movie.
Just terrifying. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Top 3 of all time. And the old, I think it's MGM Freaks.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
With all the circus. Yes.
Disturbing one. Yeah.
Oh, yes. So disturbing. Yes. And it's, again, the idea of monster being a matter of perspective.
Right.
And I do appreciate what you do in this piece, going back to Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, in that you do weave in both sort of timelines, for lack of a better term, both realities. This idea that there is this connective tissue and it's a matter of perspective as to who the monster is. Just to pull it back to Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, plug again.
Yes, plugging that again. Well, and plugging it back into Monster of the Week as well. One thought I was wondering about, because reading Mary Shelley's Schools for Monsters, you seem to have a lot of backstory for each of these characters, really well laid out. And Monster of the Week is really taking these different monsters and giving that, like really telling in prose form these stories of theirs and how they got to whatever particular place where, it's Frank who's writing all the Monster of the Week things.
Oh, Necro is. So
Necro.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Necro's the book. So
Right. Necro's the book. Okay, gotcha. And
I
when I read those
one day, but that's who's writing it.
Right. But when I read those, like they're always really well done. And reading some of these characters, I'm like, did Monster of the Week start because you wrote stories like that for all the characters in this book, and you've just continued to add to that? Or like, how long have you been doing prose backstories for all these characters?
Well, I've always had backstories for the characters, and then I did like a whole TV Bible for like the whole series, just to get an idea. Like if I were to make a 13 episode TV thing, what would it look like? And then I outlined it kind of with what the book series would look like. And I chose to do Monster of the Week for my Substack because, one, I have had a lot of newsletter burnout. I don't really enjoy writing in my newsletter.
Thank you. Someone else gets it.
Yeah.
Oh no, I hate it. It's necessary, but there's a reason I took a month off.
Yeah. And so I wanted to do something in my newsletter that was like, hey guys, this isn't like a final draft of anything. Sometimes it is. Every once in a while, I do write some stories where I'm like, that is the final draft, that I worked on that. But I wanted to kind of create a place where I could research monsters, talk about monsters with other people who are interested in it. And then also when I have my own characters that I'm going to, that I want to expand upon because I know their backstories, I can then write more of them. So an example of that being in Monster of the Week is like, in Mary Shelley's School for Monsters in this Origins 2, we have a new character that I named Barg, but it's a Barghest, which is the black dog from like English folklore.
Yeah.
And it's like the black dog is like
that's the one I guessed successfully when she gave a hint on Substack a while back.
Oh yeah,
I was very proud of that.
And so I know that is my character, and I know that in the first, you're going to see Bark. He's a big part of the beginning of Origins 2, the comic that's on Kickstarter right now. And then he shows up again in the hardcover, and he'll show up again, but you aren't going to get like this super in-depth backstory. So if you really want to know how, like, Barg is an interesting character because he's a monster, but he worked with Dr. M, who's the big villain. And so Frank and Shell have some issues with him, obviously, like, because he helped keep them captives for so many years. And Dr. M is very disturbing guy. I don't show it, but he does a lot of occult science that's also tech related. So he does a lot of like taking monsters apart, connecting them to tech, doing really horrible experiments on them. I keep that mostly off page because it is middle grade, but he's definitely inspired by Dr. Moreau. And
okay.
Yeah.
I was just about to
I did
say,
it right on the nose.
I was like, listeners, guess what the M might stand for, but nope, there it is.
So I just want to have fun with some books I liked when I was a kid. So like whatever. And I mean, maybe I wasn't a kid for that one, but well, I had this like kid.
You might be. You were
Well, back in the day,
allowed to
there
watch
was
King
this, like,
Kong. Why not?
yeah, I think I was a kid actually because I was in the 80s, so we read whatever we wanted. But
Exactly.
Anyway, so in Monster of the Week, even though I do monsters that aren't in Mary Shelley's, I do occasionally do a monster that is in it, and I give a more in-depth backstory. So the concept of Monster of the Week is that I tell you about the monster, and then usually in the next one, I will do a made-up folk tale about that monster. Because the reason I'm always feel like I want more when I read folklore, I want more stories about certain monsters. Usually with the monsters, they're like, oh, they went into a cave and got into a fight with this person and they died. And then you're like, that's it. And you don't have any more stories. So with Argus, I remember Argus was my first one. I wanted more of a story for Argus, the 100-eyed giant, and so I wrote a whole thing. And then my next short comic that I did with Mark Mechtel and the next Nightmare Theater 3D is Argus. I mean, it's inspired by Argus. So you can hopefully with Monster of the Week will become fun is when you do read my material, you'll be like, oh, I wonder if she did a short story about this character. And I do mostly so that's just a place for me to have fun. So I do a short story about Barghest meeting Dr. M and how Dr. M and him how they first met and why Barghest works for them. So if you're digging deep and you're really into Mary Shelley, go find more stories. I do another one with Tamamo no May, who is the nine-tailed fox, who is also is a big character in both Origins 2 and the hardcover that's coming, The Killings. It's going to be called The Killing Stone. And it's set mostly in Japan and with Japanese folklore and monsters. And she has a whole backstory with Dr. M that she does like Dr. M. Like they have a more complicated relationship, possibly romantic at some point in the hundreds of years. And then she shows up in Mary Shelley's School for Monsters and has a more some stuff happens. So yeah, I'm not sure if you've read Origins 2 yet, Dave. I don't know if it got
no, we didn't get a copy of it.
Oh, okay. Oh no, all right.
We've read Origins 1, but not. So we're going to be pairing it with the wine today, basically with Mary Shelley overall, but Origins 1 specifically is the one I told Dallas to go with because it was a little
I'm sorry you didn't get Origins 2 because I wish.
I didn't think it was ready. I think I forgot to ask explicitly for it, and
it is ready.
Yeah, it is ready. Okay,
I will probably shoot it. I'll probably shoot it over.
Okay, I mean, I pledged for I pledged for it on the campaign already, so I'll get it eventually, one way or the other. Yeah. But actually, to that one thing I wanted to ask you real briefly before we go look at the Kickstarter page, because we're almost at that point.
Okay.
As a writer, one thing I've been impressed with, because I suck at this, and I know you've been writing for a while, so you've had time to develop good habits, but you're very regular with the Monster of the Week. And it's always like quality prose, a decent amount of prose every time. And I'm very jealous of how regular you get to do that. So what are your writing habits? How did you get to a point where you could write so regularly? And when do you write? What's your schedule?
Well, first of all, Kickstarters and cons kill my writing schedule, and I'm working on that not happening.
Well, you're still doing it. You're still doing it. It's amazing. That's the point, right? You seem so busy.
So at first, I was doing one a week where I would do the whole breakdown of the creature, and then I would do a short story. And I did that pretty consistently for the first couple months. And I'm like, I'm going to burn out. That's too much. So I've switched it to the goal is every other week. So every week, 1 week, I will say, here's all the information. Let me tell you, because Necro does it from this point of view, like I've got an inside scoop. So they'll give you the facts and then some, and usually I'll tie it into some other, like one I did was Amit. I'll say, oh, they were also in a Marvel comic, give modern day examples of where these creatures show up.
Yeah.
And then, but I'll tell their story and they'll say, well, some people think that, but this is the real thing. Right. And then I will then tell then I will do the next week. So I'll do that part in 1 week. And then the next week I will drop the short story, like the new story inspired by it. And so sometimes it's done in a folklore fashion where it's I tell it in a very folk kind of way. And then other times it's just a straight up short story of this creature. Like I did Dullahan and that's a very straight up creepy going home story about coming home, two siblings coming home. Their sister is supposedly dead, and they find out that that might not be exactly true. So, and they end up in like some creepy, winter solstice ritual that no one wants to be part of. But yeah, and but yeah, and so it just depends on which creature is and what it does. Like, because I did a yeah, I'm gonna ramble, but part of it is I try to write every single day. I try to do that first thing in the morning.
Okay.
And I try to at least do it for 2 hours, and if I can do it for
Wow.
6, that's great, but I don't usually do that. So it's usually like 4 because my day ends at a certain point when I have to go get my kids, and then I can't.
Yep.
And so yeah,
Yep.
and I used to be able to go back and write at night, but I'm not that person anymore.
No.
Like once
I mean,
it's
that sounds like overkill.
yeah, no, writing at night used to be my favorite time, but now my brain is
Yep.
just mush.
Yep. Yep.
I try to say to people, you got to try to do it every day, or because when I don't do it every day, which it's been like that a little bit right now, I
Yeah.
get way behind on stuff. So it's
Yep.
so
It's
but every
interesting
Monday
how
I just
easy.
make myself write Monster of the Week.
Yeah.
That's usually, yeah.
Perfect. I mean, I just from my own personal experience, like writing is one of the few things that no matter how long or how well you've established the habit, it breaks so
Oh,
easy.
so easy.
So easy. It's in so many other habits, it's like it's hard to break yourself of them. In writing, no, you skip like a
3 days,
week because you got stuff happening, like a con, and you're like, right, a whole weekend, and then you're like, okay, let's get the week started slow. I've got to catch up on things. And it's just impossible. Like, it's like you've lost the whole habit, even though you've been doing it who knows how long without a break, without actually breaking that habit. Yeah, but that's why it's so impressive that I keep seeing output from you.
I had to just say today, I put out my Substack today, and I was just like, you guys are getting the one on La Llorona next week because she
You
is
just got back
actually
from WonderCon, right?
Well,
Yeah.
it was WonderCon. It was just back to back, and I was like, if I try to write this story, everyone's just gonna get the weirdest version of this. And I wish I'd said that I started my Substack and been way ahead. Like, ideally, I would have written these, and so I could have had a buffer, but I haven't.
Yeah.
So I'm usually
okay. You know what though? I will say it's not a good idea. I know you do prose writing, like actual fiction, unlike my Substack, which is much more like, news and information and things like announcements. But I actually still have. So I started the Substack with like 6 pre-written posts that I knew would come later down the line. And I was like, okay, I don't know exactly when, but let's just hold off on that. None of them have been published to this day. So I just never because life took me elsewhere, and all that work to prepare things. I'm like, now, and then half of them don't even make sense to ever post at this point. So,
so you just
it's a good idea. But again, from my experience, like because you're building your audience and going with your career and what you're writing and who you're interacting with and what the guest spots on other people's Substacks are and blah, blah, blah. It's like things just go off the somewhere else. And then you're like, oh, all that work is kind of for nothing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can't plan that far. I try to plan far ahead, and I'm terrible at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I also sometimes I'll be like, this is what I said I was going to do, and I have to do it. And I'm like, I'm the boss. I don't have to do anything. Like, what are we talking about?
Right.
And so sometimes that's the moments I like with Substack, I realize I'm like, I want to be consistent, but like, I am the boss of Substack for me. Yes, my readers will get upset if I disappear for a while. I think, but like,
Or, again, the readers lose the habit too. I think the same way you lose the habit of writing. So it's like when you drop, sometimes though, I will say it can be nice if your break doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
Getting a break, and then because sometimes we're flooded with newsletters and Substacks and like too much stuff to do and read. Right. And then when someone disappears for a little while, you kind of don't notice until that new one drops, but then you're like, oh wait, I haven't seen one of those in a little bit. That's true. You prioritize it because you're like, that's okay. What's been going? I really want to check in on this one now because this person has been a while. Yeah. I think if you did it too often, it would just be inconsistent, like straight up. But if you do it sometimes, like the break lets you be new all over again for folks and like, a priority and refreshing, or at least again, anecdotal, but that's how my brain works.
Don't write it down as fact. Okay.
There you go. She's like, I like that. That's how I want to live my life.
When I take a break, it's good.
That's right.
And one last thing I will say, I do think we've also come into a point with quote unquote content and content creation online, where I remember many years back, the big advice was always like that be consistent thing, right? Like pick a schedule and, every week, 3 times a week, whatever it is, you've got to do it. And I don't know if it's because of all the crap that got dumped onto online. It was all kind of like not that great because people were just doing it 3 times a week and was like, we don't have time to like refine anything. We don't have a team. It's just us. So, it's 3 times a week and it's just, as we were talking about earlier, it's like 3 hours of rambling, no editing, no nothing. And it's like, and there's just so much of it all of a sudden. Yeah. And the advice
it's totally overwhelming. Yeah.
Totally overwhelming. And the advice switched. I noticed at some point, maybe around the pandemic time, like right before or right after when everyone was home and getting online. But the advice suddenly switched to be consistent, but not at the expense of quality. True. Never at the expense of quality. So if, like you just mentioned, if you pumping out that La Llorona story would have been a weird, not that great La Llorona story. Yeah. That's when you holding back and being like, I'll do the story better if I just don't force myself to pump it out today.
Yeah.
And I think that, yeah.
Yeah. And I can always just write something like what I did. And I just gave everyone a little bit of an update on WonderCon. I discovered this new comic company that does Filipino horror, which my Mark, who does Pistol, is Filipino, and he's always telling me stories. And and so then I got one of their.
I lived in the Philippines for 4 years, by the way.
Oh, you did? Okay, yeah. I mean, that horror, so that's a whole. So I'm digging deep into that now, and it's like, which definitely was up on Substack, yeah. And so I just like gave a little like blah blah blah. I'm doing that, and yeah, and whoever's reading it cares, and who's not.
Exactly.
It's like, I mean, we all have like those people on our list who aren't reading anything; they just stay on the list for fun. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's go take a look at that Kickstarter page real quick.
Oh gosh.
Real quick. Quickish. We'll actually cover everything.
Yeah. Well.
So I'm going to put the link to the Kickstarter in the chat for everybody in case you'd like to click over there, but I will also share my screen so we can all look at it together. So here we go. Share. Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, Origins #2 comic. The Monster Crew journeys to the Arctic and Japan to confront villains from their past. Prepare for brand new monsters and magic. Let's play that video, shall we?
It's very nice. I didn't talk that. Sometimes I come in and talk, but that one I meant to come back and change it, and I never did. So
it did the trick.
Yeah, it did the trick. And I think Kickstarter video might be, unless there is like, you have a tech gadget or something you really need to explain to people like what it is, or if you have a long running series and this is like some weird issue that you're like, let me tell you like how this fits into everything. Like maybe it's important, but I think videos, I've realized I never play the videos anymore. Like I'm always right down into the description so I can just see what it is and read what it is. And I don't think to do the video for that.
When I do the video is when someone reaches out to me to want to collaborate or cross promo, and I'm like, I have to see who this person is. Like, if I don't,
yeah.
And then I got to look through the whole thing and figure them out and see. Well, I do because I like to do due diligence.
Right.
I don't want to.
Right.
But,
and it's always good to see them on the screen and hear them talking and like get a sense of their person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you might go to the page and it's just this, and you're like, oh, that didn't help.
Yeah. No, it's usually I know if I'm gonna back something. if I can usually tell by the log line and then the first image. That's
Yes.
Right.
yeah.
Right. Whether it fits
That's
what you're doing and
or
your
I'm
audience.
interested. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So as you can see, guys, it is well funded, $7,088 out of a $2,500 goal, 233 backers. But let's get it as high. I'm sure we're going to see some stretch goals down below, so we want to get it as high as possible. And you only have, once again, until 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Wednesday morning. That's going to be 11:30 Eastern time. But do it by end of day tomorrow, if at all possible.
I don't even think that's when I thought it. I don't even think I thought that's when it was ending.
Oh, there you go.
I thought it was like midnight. I mean,
well, okay, so you never know what might
sneak. A little extra time, yeah.
Right. You'll wake up and see what happens between that, when you black out and when you wake up. I don't know how much you have kids, so you're probably more of a morning person than me.
I don't black out as often anymore when I have my
That's good. That's good.
All right. So you can go see some preview pages by clicking on that. And here's the cover of Mary Shelley's School for Monsters Origins #2. Now, one question for you about the Origins comics that are coming out. The first Origins kind of opens and leads the first graphic novel. Yeah. Is the plan to do an Origins kind of per volume type of a thing? Or yes. Okay.
Yeah. So basically about 6 months, this is the goal, before the hardcover goes on to Kickstarter, I do the Origins special edition of the prologue. And there's you have a special cover, there's merch that goes with it. It's a collector item. I only sell it on Kickstarter and at conventions or events. So you can't order it on my website or anywhere else. Right. You have to either back it on Kickstarter or you have to see me at a convention.
See you in person. Yeah.
And so, but the reason it's not just to do a specialty item, it is the Origins, each of the Origin prologue, they're telling the backstory. So the first one is 200 years before modern time, or give or take, a decade or two. And that's when you meet Dr. M, and that's when Mary Shelley gets split into two versions of herself. And then it kind of sets the whole thing on, in motion. And then in this Origins, which is #2, you're 50, you're about 50 years after that, but you're still 150 years and 175 years in the past. They've escaped, Dr. M, and they've been plotting to deal with him because he's so evil. And so you're coming in on that, you're coming in on Frank is chasing after Barg, and you don't know what Frank's going to do to Barghest, whether Frank is going to kill Barghest or if he's what's going to happen. So that's part of the book. And then meanwhile, Shell and Necro are on a boat traveling with Dr. M, who they've captured. So now the tables have turned.
Okay.
And I'm not going to, and so they are taking him to a place that actually exists in Japan with this cursed object called the Killing Stone, or the Sesoseki. And the reason that's in the story is because I think in March 2021, it cracked in half. There was this article, and it cracked in half, and it's this cursed stone that people think if you touch it, you die. It's there's an actual place you can go look at it. And I was like, oh my God, it cracked in half. That's so awesome. And that changed this story. I was writing the second book and that happened. And I was like, okay, well, I need to have that as part of this kind of. And so, but people say that Tamamo no Mae was the one maybe captured in that, in that stone.
Gotcha.
And so, and so obviously the cracked part doesn't happen in this version.
Right. Not at this time. Right. Yeah.
Come into the hardcover, the bigger version. But yeah. And so the concept is that the Origins will all tell a story on their own. So I will do an Origins for each of the hardcover. And then at some point when I'm done, I will put them all together with some extra art and extra story, and they will be their own thing.
Cool.
Very cool. Yeah. So they are telling their own story of how our team starts as, just meeting each other to getting to the school, building the school, and making a safe haven for other monsters. So
awesome. Cool. All right.
So it's their
And this
origin
is
story, obviously.
right. They're all hence the origins. Yes, so
Yeah.
they're all going to be the origin story, one
Yeah.
piecemeal, one little bit at a time, jumping in time a little bit. Cool, because she's been a kid like this version of Mary Shelley, the split version, has been around for a long time. So you have a lot to play with.
And she's stuck in that child's, that she's a
body.
teen queen,
Yeah.
but I always
I will say I really liked how one thing from the hardcover, you have this foreword at the very beginning of it that's written by supposedly written by the Mary Shelley about her memories of the event, and it makes the whole thing where because the first Origins comic is actually telling like a pretty complicated idea of like how this all happened and how she's split into two and what that means and who this new Mary Shelley is. And I'm like, but in this very brief forward, the real Mary Shelley kind of explains it in this very fairy tale like way that makes it sound like you don't really understand it, but you could run with it. It's so like fairy tale-ish, like written out in just a couple sentences, and you're like, oh great. But then you read the Origins comic and you're like, oh yeah, that's really complicated. That's a lot going on in that story. But I really appreciated that, how you had like that nice, brief, succinct, chef's kiss version of it right at the beginning, and then but here's the full, this is how it played out kind of a thing, which is the Origins #1 comic. Yeah.
And it is complicated. It's a fun thing to pitch at cons because they did split into two versions, and a lot of people just want to say, oh, it's Mary Shelley, and I'm like, well, it's not Mary Shelley. It is a new supernatural entity, because to me the Necronomicon, I also wanted to make a nice version of the Necronomicon and a female version of the Necronomicon, and who acted like a cute, cuddly dog who has poor impulse control, and is obsessed with balls and toys and running after things, but has all that super powerful dark magic inside of it. So it not only did it split them, I think it more than it split them. I say split to make it simple. It created an entirely different entity, which is what Shell is, a supernatural entity out of, and so our Mary Shelley, the real Mary Shelley, goes on to be human. She grows old. She dies. She can be a ghost. She can be something else. She can be something supernatural as well, because once they split, they were totally different. So
it's almost more like an alternate reality Mary Shelley, right? Who then never ages or never physically ages from that point
branch
forward.
It's Loki. You're just
right, exactly.
Right.
There you go. That's a good for all the current Marvel.
She just doesn't age. You're right. She doesn't age, or she's not easy to kill. She can be killed, but
okay.
Yeah.
I think at one point in the first trade paperback, she even brags. She's like, I can't be killed. And I was like, really? Wow.
Frank's like,
he's like, I'm not so sure about that. But here's the Necronomicon. So you can see this is our cute, cuddly little puppy eyes and puppy mouth. And here's the split Mary Shelley trying to wrangle with him. Yep. Some interior pages of the #2.
Oh yeah, Frank, right after his fight with Bargas. Yeah.
Yes.
Argos.
No, come here. Let's go down. All right, and then we've got this is I'm assuming Dr. M trapped in something.
It's little. I have a geometry problem, but I do like putting people in iron things that are multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
There you go. I mean, it works with like magic and alchemy and all that type of stuff. They were always yeah.
And it was important to me just because, like, as a fan of the Frankenstein book, I wanted to go to the Arctic. I wanted my version of the reanimated corpse, like going through like but for a completely different reason or similar reason, like vengeance and everything. But and then I love the boat and the letter writing, and so I did a little nod to that with Frank and Shell on the in the opening of Origins 2. And so and that's why they're on this giant ship and going on these, making it so epic. But it was
right.
Kind of a wink to the book. And then and then they get to Japan and have to
And I'm assuming this is the stone.
Yes, I can. Yeah. So up at the
Okay.
top
Okay.
is May, who is the nine-tailed fox.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is a fight sequence that they are having. And then yes, and Anna made the stone a little bigger than it is in reality, but that's creative
Yeah, yeah.
license. Yeah, we
Of
needed it a little
course.
bigger
Of
for what
course.
our purposes.
Right.
Yeah, I can't see the stone from from the way I'm looking at it, but
Okay.
I know it's there. So
Gotcha. Gotcha.
there,
All
yeah.
right.
That's the stone.
Beautiful.
Whoosh.
And so
Beautiful.
we do a campaign pin for each one. So that's
Very good.
we finally did necro. So there's the necro pin. And it's
Beautiful.
on I think rose plated metal.
Oh, nice.
And then we usually do a metal print where we print 25 to 50 copies. This one we're printing 25. And that's the Sea Voyage. It'll be printed on silver aluminum. And we just hit the 7,000 stretch goal. So everybody who's a physical backer will now get a postcard print of this.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. Of this print.
All
We
right.
do one for each we do one for each campaign. So for Origins 1, we did this one. There's not very many. It's hard to see it
Right.
actually, but yeah,
Oh,
because it
that's cool.
shines. This one's them playing D&D, but it's impossible because the light is doing it. And then we have the La Llorona one that was from the book one, and then this. So we'll have one for
Gotcha.
each.
And just to point out what people missed, because first day backer bonus, you get a Barg sticker. And 72-hour backer bonus, you get the Haunting #1 digital copy of week 1 backer perk, Lucifer Licorice. Ooh, I love Lucifer Licorice. #1. Week 2 backer perk. So you see, guys, this is what happens when you're not in. When you come in at the last couple days, you missed all of this. The Hospice, No Freedom in Texas.
But you didn't miss
backer
this.
perk.
You didn't miss this.
Oh, there. Okay.
Week 3.
Okay.
And I put
okay.
2 in week 3 just for the last minute.
Beautiful. So Blood and Fire and War Lion, you can still get copies of those. And then the stretch goals is what we were talking about. So we've already unlocked the Sea Voyage print, of course.
Yeah.
The
first
postcard version.
it was a digital.
Oh, digital.
The 3K was just a digital. And then the 4K is a short story that I wrote that I love that no one's read.
Okay.
Well, the Horror Writers Association has read it because it got to the
Okay.
top 18 for this anthology that HarperCollins is doing for middle grade horror.
Ooh.
And I think I got it. It was great. They're like, oh, it was great. You got to the top 18, but it just didn't fit into the rest of the anthology. So I don't know what to do with it, for one thing, because it is a dystopian horror told in the world of Wind in the Willows.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
The whole anthology was telling horror stories in public domain.
Hold on. That's right up my alley. Hold on.
I know.
Yeah, and I had a really fun time with this one. And I did use one of the monsters for Monster of the Week in it, of my made up folklore.
Okay.
And as the base of it. And so it's a lot of fun. So that is a stretch goal I'm actually very excited about.
Cool.
That's cool. Yeah, when I was a kid, Wind in the Willows scared the crap out of me. That was Watership Down was the only thing that scared me more, but Wind in the Willows was definitely up there.
I had a lot of fun writing in the Wind in the Willows. I was surprised how much fun I had. I never do that, and it was a lot of fun. And so
very cool.
And
all right, a monster on Mole's Mountain. So that's unlocked. And if you back, you do get the stretch goals. So you're not too late for those. And then 5K, we've also unlocked receive a PDF script for Origins #2 with selected art process pages. So behind the scenes stuff right there. And then 6K, you've got all backers receive a Shell, Frank, and Barg magnet. Cool. I like that.
Yeah, so that's more physical. And then the 7K stretch goal we did just hit. And so everyone will also get a physical print of the Sea Voyage.
Yep. Very cool. Beautiful. Awesome. Whoop.
We had
cross promos. Oh yes, the ex-wives of Frankenstein. That makes sense. Sort of.
Well, Richard and I just get along, so that's
right.
It does make sense a little bit, but we've been wanting to do a cross promo for a while, but we kind of joke that his is a more of an adult story, and mine is middle grade. And
I mean, not as bad as some of his other stuff. This is definitely one of the tamest. The tamer things.
I'm such a fan. I actually have it next to me because I do love it. But I'm a big fan of the ex-wives, and we were talking about it, and he just emailed me and was like, "What if I make this crazy print?" And I'm like, "Oh, that'll be so fun. Let's do it." And so he was like, what everybody's been waiting for. Like, so if you already did back the ex-wives
Oh
of
yes, this is the print.
Frankenstein,
Yeah.
you can back mine and you will get this print, which is set in the world of that Groovy Ghoulies TV show from way back.
Oh yeah. I can see that. That's
And he
cool.
did watercolor on the back and then drew them.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah. Beautiful. And then the other cross promotion, Snowpaw, another Kickstarter book that's very popular, and the Barg sticker. So the wolf characters.
Yeah.
Or wolf.
And that one's a very cute sticker, and Mark designed that, and
here we go.
Put them together. Yeah, and that's yeah. So if you did back Snowpaw and you want that sticker, you come over and back Mary Shelley, and you get that sticker. So
look at that. Yeehaw.
There's one of the metal plates. I use that as a picture of them hanging out. But
beautiful. Like that actually is very beautiful. That's a gorgeous image.
It is.
And original character designs. There's Medusa for you. And I really like the design of Medusa, by the way. I feel like this is one of the more unexpected and unique designs.
This is my favorite. She's my favorite design too.
Yeah.
I like her. I mean, she's exactly as I described her. Like, we were very on the page, but I just loved how she did her hair and everything. And yeah. And so Medusa has an interesting story. I mean, they all have interesting storylines, but yeah. So this is our professor crew. Basically, they're all on the seal. If you look at the school crest, which is a pin or a sticker you can get, it was the campaign pin for Origins 1.
And is this it in the middle right here?
Yeah, that's it in the middle. I'm pointing like anyone can see me pointing at it.
I know. Sorry.
And so these are, besides Shell, it's Frank, and we've got Medusa, who's the actual Medusa. She's immortal in my story, and there is a secret backstory of how she's still alive and how it doesn't fit, except with her and Perseus. But we'll talk about it later. All right. I rewrote Greek mythology, guys. That's what I do at Monster.
That's what it's there for.
That's what it's there for.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what it's there for. Everyone's just rewriting these stories. And then with AI, I mean, you might as well just put out crazy stuff.
That's right.
And so then we've got Will, who's a wisp. And he is kind of the recruiter. He goes out and finds monsters in need and comes back. And he also manages all the primal woods around the school that is all kind of chaos, obviously.
Yeah.
And then Necro, who holds it all, who binds it all together. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Then we got Mary Shelley, School for Monsters, Wanted.
Right, the new guys, yeah.
Beautiful. Oh yeah. Mamo no Me. Aino?
I think it's, I say but yeah.
I
hope I'm right. That's
like Brian Eno.
And you only see in Origins 2, you're just going to see the Firefox character without a lot of he's with Frank when they go after Barg, but he'll show up again in the hardcover, like the full book. So yeah. He can wipe out an entire universe, guys. That's his skill set.
And of course, here we go. The real thing.
Yep. Is that the one of the broken one? I think so. I don't know.
This thing? No. This thing
so it's right here. This one is the picture of the broken one where it broke in half. And then, so it's a lot smaller. We just made it very big.
Gotcha. All right. That's funny. All right. So if you love Mary Shelley and your heart breaks for the monster in Frankenstein, you're exactly where you belong. Some more internal art. And of course, the team. We've just talked. This is Anna, the illustrator. Just get her. I'm not going to try. But
Anna Weisscheck. Yeah.
Weisscheck?
Yeah.
Perfect.
I believe, and that's what I say, so I'm gonna stick with it.
Fair enough. And of course, Jessica.
It's moving very slow on my end, so I'm just waiting for it to.
Oh no, it actually is kind of moving slow. Yeah.
Okay.
Matt Kreutzer, our letterer. over here.
Yeah, and he's part of Metal Ninja Studio, so this is the first time I worked
Yeah.
with. It's the first time I've worked with him. Because
Gotcha.
Joel did the lettering on the first book, and then
Gotcha.
Christian did the design, and now he is doing it. It looks really great already. So
Beautiful. Oh, it's just it's just some more interior artwork. Okay, so yeah, $8 for the digital book. $12 for a digital catch-up of issues 1 and 2 of Origins. $15 for the physical. And or the physical plus pin plus special thanks, you've got $35. Physical catch-up, you've got $25. The Virgin cover requires a $25.
you get both. Though.
You get both. Okay.
You get both of the covers at that one.
Ah, perfect. Yeah. Okay, that's nice. I was willing to go with that. I'm like, yeah, 25 for a Virgin cover. That makes sense. But okay, so you get both. And then the enamel pin, which includes the physical comic as well, but including the enamel pin, but just the one main cover, and then the enamel pin, that's 25.
And everybody gets the campaign sticker of Frank and
right.
The 3, yeah, and so everyone always
Cool Crest mug. I do not need another mug, but damn it, that's nice. Get one oh yeah, okay. Get 5. Give 5.
Yeah. And I actually do workshops. So I don't just drop those comics off somewhere. I do a workshop talking about comics, creating comics, career pathways, things like, or I do a writing workshop and I hand them out. So it's not it's not just the comics going to I don't just drop off the library or the school. I do an event and then I hand them
delivered to gotcha. Yeah, 2 youth programs, schools, libraries in the Los Angeles area. Okay, awesome.
Maybe I should say in the that there's more to it. But,
right. Yeah. Beautiful. I mean, if people have been following you for a little while, they would. I'm assuming you've offered this before. So yeah.
Well, and some people who back me aren't that big of. They're not really like this. Might not be their kind of comic, but they are into the other part of it.
Right.
So.
Beautiful. And then the School for Monsters gift set, which includes kind of a little bit of everything, a lot of stuff, pins, stickers.
And then, you get almost everything. You get a lot of stuff, and then I actually, as Shell, I write a personalized letter with a spell that I make up for the individual person, and then it comes with a special amulet and thing. So it is a cute little gift, and people are usually pretty happy with it.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then we've got the La Llorona in the Machine set, so the original hardback as well. Hardcover graphic novel signed. There you go. Both Origin comics signed, physical letter of acceptance, and then all the other bells and whistles.
Yeah. And this one, actually, that one comes with, I believe, the book plate that is signed by both Anna and I. But I don't think that's very clear. I'm just realizing as I'm staring at it. But
yeah.
Also, the Mary Shelley School for Monsters, La Llorona, the hardcover book has just become a finalist in 2 different independent book awards.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's a finalist for Graphic Novel of the Year and the Forward Indies Book of the Year. And then we just found out that it's also a finalist in the Independent Book Publishing Association Benjamin Franklin Award, which is just best of independent publishers. Hearing a weird sound in my house, but that's all right.
All right, and give 10 comics, same thing as a 5, but in 10 instead of that. Beautiful. And the collector's set, only 25 available. I'm assuming this is the everything in the kitchen sink one, yeah?
Yeah, that's got everything in it.
Yeah, amazing. And trading card inspired by you. Some Spells Are Forever trading card designed by Mark Mechtal, inspired by you. So I'm assuming you kind of talk to them to figure out what the spell is going to be.
Yeah. So like on that, so basically I created this whole, there's an alarm going off in my house and no one's turning it off. So can you guys hear it?
Oh, no.
Okay, good. If you can't hear it, that's fine. And it's not an alarm. It's like from someone's iPad or something.
Oh, got you.
And basically,
StreamYard is amazing at blocking the background noise out, no matter how piercing it is. It's great.
Wonderful. Yeah. I'll be fine. Don't worry. No, I'm just kidding. So basically, you get this trading card or this game piece. Mark and I may do a game inspired by Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, but we're still kind of talking about it. But this
Okay.
is like you get a trading card, and you get to tell me what you want your powers to be. You get to pick between 3 monsters. And then Mark will do the design of it and get the actual physical card. And then I did a Some Spells Are Forever game that was a stretch goal in Origins 1. And it's basically like a Google form game, like a choose your own adventure game, but like a cast your own spell game. So all the characters, so all the characters that have been designed. So we've done 4 different people have done this tier before. You can go, when you play the Google form game, you can play as one of them. And they all have different interactions. In the Primal Woods, they're trying to make their way to the School for Monsters. They need safe haven, but one of them goes missing. And there's this whole game that you can play to try to, that anyone can go play. It's a link somewhere on my website. But it was one of the stretch goals. It was not easy. I thought it was going to not be as difficult as it was, but it was kind of, I was making a template for maybe someday a more advanced game. And so these characters get, so if you do get a trading card done, I will add you into the Google form game.
Very cool.
Into there.
Very
Hopefully.
cool.
But I've successfully done it so far, so it will happen.
Good.
Beautiful. And then up to 10 backers. This is the VIP set. And how does this change from the previous set?
So you get everything, but you're also going to, oh my God, what is it? You're going to get a bunch of first look art and a bunch of first look of the story. You're going to do a Zoom convo with me and a surprise guest, and we're going to tell you a bunch of secrets about the upcoming comic. And then I don't even know, but I think it's pretty.
It's a good problem that you have so much stuff to put into a thing that you're just like, I'd have to review the bullet list.
Well, no, I mean, you get all the same stuff that you get in the collector's thing, but it's just that additional experience.
Okay, perfect.
Whether it's one person or 10 people, you'll get to do that combo. And there's just always a couple people who are into this. And so not yet for this one, but that's okay. I think it's one of those things on Kickstarter where you always just put one on there that's crazy. And it's not crazy. I don't think it's crazy, but you put one in there for people who really like to have a VIP experience.
No, $500. Like people charge that for consulting all the time, on some kind. So you're getting all of this stuff plus getting on a live Zoom at some point, and it's like, that's worth it.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have the financial bandwidth for that, but and no problem there. But if you do, that is definitely something to consider.
Yeah, we'll have fun. I mean, not too much fun. It's only $500, guys. It's not going to be
right. All right, beautiful. And of course, everything like where the money goes, it's all for the printing and yada yada yada. The fine print. You guys can go over there and check that out if you care. But I think that's everything. Any last thing, Jessica, that we didn't cover?
No, the only thing I don't put in my campaign is there's no AI involved in any of the creation of this. And also, I usually I do a donation for sustainability at the end of each campaign to Tree People, which is a local place that plants trees and works with kids in the neighborhood to just kind of make up for the use of paper. So
beautiful.
That's great.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. So that is Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, everybody. I think we're up to the wine pairings. It is time. And I'll go first. I think it's my turn to go first because you went first last, Alice, I think.
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. Okay, we'll do that. New week, one of us will start. So I am definitely, I'm sticking to my guns in terms of my reasoning for why I paired what I paired at the Blending Lab when Jessica was at the in-person wine and comic pairing event, that Zinfandel Cabernet Sauvignon. But, that is a specific wine that can only be bought at the Blending Lab in LA or their tasting room in Paso. So the vast majority of people listening to this can't get it even if they wanted to. You can place a mail order, but that's pretty prohibitive. And depending on the state you're in, not possible there as well due to, alcohol shipping laws and things like that. So, but based on that reasoning, I wanted to pick something that people could all go out and find, at least in broad strokes. This exact winery Who knows? But it's going to be a specific wine from a specific region and the way that tends to come out. So my reasoning basically to begin with was, Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, all ages book. It's got that sweetness to it. It's got that you don't want something that is too adult on the palate for that reason. You want something that's going to give you a little bit. It's got to be fun. For me, that generally means it's going to have a decent fruit forwardness to the wine, something that is juicy, something that is just pleasant and nice to drink. But at the same time, as we've already been discussing, like the number of monsters, what you, Jessica, have been doing, all their backstories, how you're presenting them in new and interesting ways, giving them sort of a new life and a new POV, taking those monsters and being like, look, they need a school for monsters like the X-Men needed it for mutants. They need that sort of safe haven place themselves, but also learn about themselves and find a way. One thing that surprised me the first time I read Mary Shelley's School for Monsters was how the monsters, like the world, they're not like hidden exactly from the rest of the world. They're not like parts of the like elements of the world are kind of like aware that these supernatural things are around, that they exist. The first story arc is really all about this doesn't give anything away. This is basically revealed right near the beginning, but like La Llorona was put into a video game, like on purpose. The person who created the video game was like, this is gonna be fun, and grabs La Llorona, sticks her in the video game, and is like, it's because it was gonna be a horror video game. It's like, this is terrifying, and it turns out to be a little more terrifying than they really bargained for. And then the School for Monsters also need to rescue La Llorona because she's being used, in this way. So it was interesting that it wasn't like, when I first heard about the concept, I assumed this was like a word they use in the graphic novel, where it's like everyone's kind of like hiding out and not really interacting with the rest of the world, but that isn't exactly the case. There's a lot of interaction. So there's a complexity there. There's many layers. There's a lot of fun being had with these monsters, and they're being used in ways that even for adults was, real, like it was absorbing and really eye-opening. And it's one of those things that when I read your Monster of the Week stories too, it's always like, I sometimes struggle to find time to read prose the same way I struggle to find time to write prose, but it's always so well done that I will, bookmark that Substack post and be like, I might not have time the day you drop it, but I'm like, I'm carving out time to sit down and read this one evening when I have a little more free time. And it's always worth it. It's always something that's
Dave.
like,
thank you.
Yeah, it's always so well woven. It's always, and the fact that you do it as regularly as you do, even though you might give yourself some crap for not doing it as regularly as you should, it's always impressive that you do it so regularly and it's so good. So I wanted to find something that had that fun, that fruit forwardness, but still had some well-structured elements like that ZCS, because it's a crowd pleaser for a reason. It's not just like a porch sipper. It's really nice.
That's why I'm saying
in ways that surprises people. So I went a sort of general thing. I went for an Australian Grenache.
Ooh, I like.
And
Grenache.
this is from Wira Wira from McLaren Valley. And McLaren Vale, it's a pretty large section, a wine section from Australia. So this is something that if you look for Wira Wira or McLaren Vale and you look for Grenache, most places, if you have a Bevmo or a Total Wine or anything like that, at the very least, like maybe your grocery store might even have something, but at the very least, Bevmo, Total Wine, something like that, they will have a McLaren Vale Grenache in there somewhere. So I think this is something that's easy to find, but it's a warm climate, but does have, well, actually, no, it's a warm climate. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. So the fruit gets very ripe. It gets very jammy. It gets very fruity, but it also gets high in alcohol. So this is a 14.5, and Passo's the same way. I think yours might even be something like 15, the ZCS. So it's got a heft for a wine. Even though it's 15.7. Oh my God. So there is, and 14.5 is still pretty much on the high side for a red, because the mellow side for a red would be more like a 13 to 13.5, maybe even a 12.5 if you get really mellow, cool climate. But this is a warm climate, so it's 14.5. Alcohol gives a wine body, So it's going to have a really nice mouthfeel. It's going to, the flavors are going to linger on your tongue, but the tannins are low. But it's also going to have, the acidity is high, or medium high, I would say, the acidity for this when you get Australian Grenache from this area. And the acidity keeps it light and keeps it bright and keeps it from feeling heavy or too, like it keeps it from getting that adult feel of like, this is just a dark, dense monstrosity. Instead, it's fruity and light and bright. Low tannins, you're not getting that roughness, no rough edges on this thing. So McLaren Vale, Grenache, I think this is your all-purpose great pairing for Mary Shelley's School for Monsters. That's my pairing.
I'm like ordering it right now.
All right, Dallas, what you got?
I can see that. I actually probably am only a degree or two separated from your last choice.
Well, I had a feeling. I will say, guys, whites and rosés, I think there's a lot of places you can go outside of red wine that would pair beautifully with Mary Shelley as well. I was just trying to do an extension of my ZCS from the blending lab, and I was like, what can I recommend that is actually all like for everyone that they can go find, but is in that ballpark? But yes, go ahead.
It's in the ballpark, but not.
Okay.
So I think what you do so well in this piece is just making me fall in love with this character. Like she's just fun. She's a good time. Like she's clearly got some weight on her shoulders, but she also has a purpose, and there's like also ennui, and she's just sort of trying to figure it out. And there's like there's a sort of a dissonance to the character, core dissonance, which I really appreciate, which keeps me interested to see how she kind of resolves the issues that she sort of abuts as she moves through the world. And then you take the monsters, the idea that you brush off this sort of canon of monsters and, you know, sort of retool them in a weird way. I really thoroughly appreciate it. Like I said, it's just right up my alley. And because of that, I knew I wanted something that was not too out of the box, not too crazy, something that didn't necessarily require a whole lot of sort of intellectual energy to sort of enjoy. And sometimes wines require a lot of energy to enjoy. I know that's not something the wine world may want to hear, but it's a fact. So I actually went with the ZPS from the blending lab.
No, he went blending lab. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is ZP. So Zen Petite Syrah.
Yeah. This is the Zen Petite Syrah. It is the 2019, and in terms of the profile, it is pretty bold. The tannic structure is sort of mid-high, so you know it does
more edge than mine. Yeah,
it does leave a little sort of it leaves you with an impression for sure. It is dry. The acidity is also mid-high. In terms of why I like it, the aromas, the nose, you get everything from sort of like a Rainier cherry to vanilla. There's some light clove in there. Of course, you get the jammy spectrum. It lingers. It definitely lingers, and I think that is sort of mirrored in your piece as well. In that I'm thinking about this character, and that never happens because she's so endearing, and the world itself is just so much fun. And this blend is a 90-10 Zen Petite. Which is a curious blend, but Petite does sort of round out the Zen here. And what were you going to say, Dave?
Well, I was just going to say, so like the ZCS, it's like almost, it's closer to a 50-50. I think it's like 55-45 or something of that nature, where the Zin, it is that fruity, gentler, like more crowd pleaser. It took more cab to blend with that to make it what it is. But the petite is a like inky dark beast of a wine. So it takes 10. And we are, I think we are in the same mind space with this, but then ever so slight different expressions of that.
Agreed. And like I said, it's the deep ruby purple, flesh on the wine. It just opens up over time, and again, like your characters, it's I thoroughly enjoy this piece, and I thoroughly enjoy this wine, and I think they go well together. That's my choice. Yeah.
Thank you, Dallas.
And if you can't find and if you can't find the ZPS, I will recommend. I don't have a bottle of it, but there is the I think it's the Marietta Roman 2020 Zin Petite Syrah out of North Coast, which is like $23 a bottle, and then there was the I think it's Ridge Vineyards. They do a Petite Syrah about 80-20 Zin Petite out of Dry Creek, and it's about $30 a bottle. So yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. And Jessica, there is some ZPS. Next time you come to the blending lab when we do it, they have that ZPS. So, and maybe we'll mix it up and make sure it's the ZPS this time. So and then you'll be able to try that one. So beautiful. All right. And of course, we always ask our guests, bring on a comic that they love or have been loving and pair it with a beverage of their choice. So what do you got for us, Jessica?
All right. I don't have a copy of this comic because I read it from the library, but I did just recently reread Victor LaValle's The Destroyer.
The Destroyer, yeah.
And it was I think it was 6 issues, came out of Boom. And it starts where it picks up the Frankenstein story. And so you start with the original monster, and he's like in the Arctic, and something happens and he goes on like a murder rampage coming toward civilization. And meanwhile, there is I think Josephine Baker is a yeah, there we go. Thank you so much. It did come out a while ago, but I had forgotten about it. And then I was preparing for this panel, and I was like, oh, what's this book? And then, so anyways, it's basically playing with a lot of the Black Lives Matters and the police brutality. And this scientist lost her son to a shooting and has reanimated him. And she works in this like cyber tech. She works in this evil company basically that has like all these different it's just so masterfully done. It's very good. And I don't want to ruin too much of it. But the old monster and the child will of course come together at some point. And it's a story of family and dysfunction and then just society. And I just, it introduced me to Victor. And so I know he is considered like a really great horror writer. So I'm going to dive into his horror next.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so I was trying to think of what to pair this with. And I am from Northern Michigan. I live in Traverse City, and well, I don't, but I grew up in Traverse City.
You guys have the big, was it the Cherry Festival? No.
We have the Cherry Festival. And we also are in the same latitude as France. And so we have tons of vineyards, which not everybody knows. And so there's a peninsula out there, and they have a vineyard called Chateau Chantel, and they make something called ice wine.
Oh, yeah.
Is a dessert wine, but I picked it because it's the process and how it's made, not necessarily how it tastes, but it's Cairo, like I think it's called Cairo extraction. So they freeze the grapes and then they press them, and they just get a tiny little bit out of each grape. And then
they don't even have, so they just leave them out to freeze on the vine is usually because it's so cold, right? And they just let that and then pick them frozen. Yeah,
exactly. And so And then they bottle it up, and it's very like kind of a sweet Riesling, really, and like apricot flavor, caramel, and everything like that. And it's from my hometown, so I paired those two together
Very cool.
because of kind of like how ice cold the Frankenstein story can be, but how it does have this really sweet heart in it that you can find.
Good call.
Which is, I mean,
this story
that's
by
just,
Victor, the way he does it, there is a lot of ice and horror, but there is just like a very sweet family,
Good heart.
messed up family in the middle of it all. But yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff.
I was gonna say that. I mean, that kind of describes probably less of the messed up stuff, but Mary Shelley too. Like your comic, it's like that sort of. There's lots of you're taking all those monsters from their own messed up stories and giving them this much more sweet. I mean, there's conflict and there's lots happening, but it's meant to be a much sweeter story than you normally get out of these characters, right? So yeah,
very cool.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, this has been another Wine and Comics Pairing show. We will be back tomorrow. We have a special time. It is 1:30 p.m. Pacific time because we will be speaking from someone in Ireland. So we had to figure out those time zones. But come back tomorrow to learn about the comic Balor, and we will let you know all about that. But this has been Jessica Maison, Mary Shelley School for Monsters, only on Kickstarter for less than 48 hours from now. Get to it before the end, before you go to sleep tomorrow.
That's right.
And you will be all set. Thank you so much, Jessica. I'm so glad we finally have done this. And it won't be the last time.
All right. Thanks, you guys. This was great.
All right, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.